There we go. All right. So for those of you that, have joined us, some things to expect for today are to learn a little bit about the California Dream Network and what we do, understand why we're doing this, why, what's the purpose of this California Dream Act campaign, and of course, to receive resources within the UC system presented by some college professionals that have joined us here today. So before we begin, the team would like to introduce themselves really quickly. I'll go ahead and begin. My name is Eva Jimenez. I'm the CDN Northern Regional Organizer with Chila, and I use pronouns she, her, ella. I organize college students in, NorCal, including Sacramento, Davis, and Bay areas. So I'll pass it on to my colleague, Lupita.
Folks, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Lupita Martinez. I know up here it says Guadalupe, but if you call me Guadalupe, I probably won't respond because I've been called Lupita since I was small. I am the CDN statewide organizer. I particularly organize in the LA region and coastal region. So if any of you are in the LA coastal region, please feel free to reach out to me. That is my email, and I would love to share additional resources we currently have. And I'll go ahead and pass it on to Janet.
Hey y'all, my name is Janet Bucio. I'm the Southern Regional Organizer for the California Dream Network and OC Organizer for Chila. I mainly oversee like South LA, or not South LA, sorry, like the borders of LA County. So I'm talking about like a little bit of Pasadena. We have Walnut, Pomona, a little bit going into the Inland Empire, and then the OC area too. So anything from that area and down, I oversee, and I'm very excited for y'all to join us today. And I'll go ahead and pass it to Gloria.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gloria Valen. I'm the Central Valley Organizer for CHIRLA. My pronouns are she, her, ella. I organize Bakersfield all the way up to Stockton, so going up north, right in the middle of the map, right, as we like to say. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll pass it back to Eva.
All right, thank you, team. So a little bit more about the CDN. This quote is actually represents the CDN mission that, and I've highlighted here some key words. So like mobilization, politicization, empowerment of young people, equal access to education, immigration reform, economic and social justice. So these are the things that really drive our organization and drive our activities, and even some of the opportunities that are available for folks that want to get involved. So some of these include leadership trainings, local, state, and national advocacy. So for example, the Fight for Dream Resource Centers was something that, the CDN and CDN members really fought for, including we also do community organizing. We get involved in elections through phone banking, canvassing. There's opportunities for DC and capital advocacy trips. That's pictured here, some of our members that traveled to DC earlier. Marches, rallies, you name it. And we have a summer internship opportunity called Summer Leadership Academy. So if any of this sounds interesting to you or you'd like to learn more about it, don't hesitate to contact any one of us. But yeah, just wanted to introduce that as an opportunity for y'all. So back to, why we're here, why a California Dream Act campaign. And the CDN has actually done a couple of workshops. This is our fourth and final workshop. We did a workshop for community college students, CSU students, students in the private institutions, and also now UC students. And our main goal, again, is to really highlight the importance of California Dream Act application. Some of you might be aware that undocumented students who want to pursue higher education, they can't file a FAFSA application. So they file a California Dream Act application, which is state financial aid. And CSAC, which is the California Student Aid Commission, actually reported that, since 2019, the application submissions for California Dream Act fell 4% in 2020, which is the beginning of the pandemic, and 16% in 2021. And so this decline is not just for first-time applicants, first-time students who want to go to college or university, but also for returning students. And so we know that the pandemic, has been a huge challenge for lots of folks, especially students. And our goal, again, given our mission statement, is to help students, especially undocumented students, have access to higher education. So that's one of our goals. And again, just to highlight why we're doing this, some of the challenges within students, not just undocumented students, but just students in general, have included health or mental health challenges. For example, 70% of students missed class or homework due to stress. Financial, barriers. For example, 50% of students reported that they were working fewer hours, meaning, they have less money for other expenses, for school expenses, for personal expenses, or just for anything that they need. We know that within the students, there's a lot of folks who help their families. And so this adds, stress to their everyday lives. There's also barriers to schooling. So 65% of students actually don't have a quiet place to work. That can be, a huge factor into why many students feel that, maybe continuing their education is not for them. And of course, there's misconceptions that add to these challenges, and misconceptions specifically about, the DACA program. We know that due to all the court challenges, folks cannot apply for DACA for the first time. They can only renew their application. And so folks who don't have DACA, who are applying to college for the first time, this, they might think that because they don't have DACA, this hinders their educational and professional opportunities, and that's not the case. And so this is why we're here. This is why we brought, presenters from all different universities to come in and highlight resources that are available for y'all as UC students. And these are resources that you could take advantage of. And not just for, current UC students, but anyone who's interested in attending a UC university. Many of these resources are, directly related to financial help and or resources that will save y'all money. And so this is, why we're doing this. We want y'all to ask any questions that you might have, to take notes, to really take advantage of this space, so you're able to take advantage of these opportunities that are out there and that exist within the UC system. So again, please feel free to use the chat to, ask any questions that you might have along the way through this presentation, but we'll also have a Q&A section at the end. So, there's plenty of opportunity for y'all to ask your questions. So let's get started. Our first presenter is Lauren Batza, a student staff with UC Berkeley Basic Needs Center.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. Super grateful to be able to share these resources with you all. So thank you. Okay, I think we can hop on to the next slide. Thank you. So as mentioned, I am a representative from the UC Berkeley Basic Needs Center. So because this presentation is not just for Berkeley students, probably not super important to highlight where we are located, but the Basic Needs Center is a resource and research center at UC Berkeley that aims to alleviate the basic needs and security our campus community faces, as well as uplift belonging and justice within this community. However, Basic Needs Centers are sort of located on many different UC campuses, so not just the Berkeley one. So before we get started, we should talk about what we mean by basic needs. I think the slide might be lagging just a little bit, so just give it a moment. But in order to discuss basic needs and security, our center needs to address how we aim to resolve these issues. So when we're talking about basic needs, we're talking about the essential resources that impact one's health, belonging, persistence, and overall well-being. This is an ecosystem that includes nutritious food, stable housing, hygiene, transportation, healthcare, mental wellness, financial stability, sleep, and emergency needs. So as you can tell, this is a very widespread ecosystem that we consider to be basic needs. And we acknowledge that it is this ecosystem which impacts one's mental, emotional, and physical health, as well as one's academic performance, professional development, social relationships, and more. Not only do we believe that none of these areas should be neglected, but also that each of these areas are deeply interconnected with one another. And in this way, we acknowledge that there's an individual value placed on each person's basic needs, as well as the value placed on how they relate to one another. So there's that slide. This is just kind of summing up everything that I just shared. And our values within the Basic Needs Center are belonging and justice. So this is kind of where our mission and vision stem from, which you can see here. Really, we're focusing on providing equitable and accessible resources in partnership with our community to prevent and alleviate student basic needs challenges. And within that, we're also working on aiming our work toward transformative basic needs justice. And again, this slide here says UC Berkeley community, but of course we're talking UC wide. And this includes undergraduate students, graduate students, staff, postdocs, and faculty, and of course within those communities, undocumented students. So moving forward with structural drivers, in order to look at the basic needs ecosystem, it's important to consider some of the structural drivers for basic needs insecurity. From the economic side, there are issues with rising income inequality and cost of living, insufficient state and federal investment, and insufficient labor resources. And from the food aspect, there is limited access to affordable, healthy food, as we can see from the existence of food deserts across the country. And of course, there's also an issue with housing among so many different communities across the United States. And lastly, there is an inadequate high school preparation for students as they transition from high school to college to learn about things like financial literacy and other basic needs issues. Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so if you just click a couple more times, the rest of the data will show up. Thank you. So this is our basic needs experience, student experience data, and this is from the University of California undergraduate and graduate student experience surveys. So according to the 2020 and 2021 data, 34% of undergraduates experienced food insecurity. And while the upside is that these percentages of those facing insecurity have decreased since the 2018 survey, the data also reveals that those who are part of multiple underrepresented communities are more likely to experience basic needs insecurity. And of course, we recognize that these things impact one's performance and belonging, as well as one's academic experience and ultimately their overall completion. Okay, so moving on to a resources overview. Before we get started, we just want to sort of recognize the difference between emergency and prevention resources. So emergency resources, as you can tell on this slide, it says need help now. So essentially this is a situation in which someone is experiencing a sudden change in their basic needs security and they need resources to resolve that situation. Whereas a prevention resource or a prevention situation is long-term support for someone who's experiencing consistent basic needs insecurity and needs assistance from those resources for a longer, more sustainable period of time. Thank you. So the Holistic Fund is one of the resources that we offer at the Basic Needs Center. So hence its fitting name, this is a holistically reaching resource for emergency financial assistance that aims to centralize where students go to access the Basic Needs Center's resources. This financial assistance could look like anything from rental assistance, food assistance, medical expenses, and a variety of other areas. An applicant will apply to the Holistic Fund and hear back from our team, and it'll be decided from there if the Holistic Fund is best for their situation. We encourage all students to check out which resources we already have available. And we recognize that the Holistic Fund is an opportunity for students to receive basic needs assistance when our resources otherwise don't apply to their situation. And the Holistic Fund is available to all undergraduate and graduate students, and this includes undocumented students as well. So some more financial programs and services that we want to highlight is financial aid counseling, which is a part of our drop-in services. And this is an opportunity for students to get connected with folks about their financial security, financial stability, among other topics. And moving on to food programs and services, the first highlighted here is CalFresh. Because this is a state-funded program, it is not available to undocumented students. So in these situations, we recommend students to use the food pantry. So at Berkeley, we have a food pantry. A lot of UCs do as well. And this is an opportunity for students to come in once a week, get food for the week as much as they need, recognizing that it is a shared resource and all they need to present is their student ID. Oh, sorry, I thought I took this slide out. I'm sorry about that. But just recognizing that the food pantry is the resource that we would recommend to undocumented students, given the fact that CalFresh is currently unavailable to those in that community. Moving on with more food programs and services, we also want to highlight nutrition counseling, which is offered through University Health Services. This is an opportunity for students to receive counseling on food-related topics. Moving forward with housing programs and services, we would like to highlight that our housing-specific services currently offered are intended to be emergency resources for students who are homeless or at imminent risk for homelessness. This could look like anything from being in a housing situation with safety concerns to unforeseen housing disruptions such as displacement and eviction, and other examples like those listed here. We encourage students facing emergency housing situations to complete our assistance form in order to be connected with our care team. This is a form that is available to all students, including undocumented students. And this will allow our team to get connected with the student and figure out how we can provide the best assistance given that person's housing situation. Outside of providing emergency housing resources, the Basic Needs Center is engaged in research and advocacy efforts to change the housing landscape in Berkeley and also on other UC campuses where basic needs centers exist. Through our Housing Justice Hub, you can find out more about the movement that we are part of, which is centered on uplifting housing as a human right. So moving forward with health and wellness programs and services, we recognize health and wellness as a holistic and inclusive space. So we have a partnership with the Freedom Community Clinic, which offers services for all students to meet with holistic healing practitioners, including herbalists, acupuncturists, massage therapists, nutritionists, among others. Additionally, as a part of our message of holistic wellness, the UC Berkeley Basic Needs Center has a partnership with University Health Services to provide a program called Let's Talk Counseling, which allows students to meet with a mental health provider and get connected in a way that uplifts their mental wellness. This is a drop-in service that can be accessed on our website. So specifically at Berkeley, we provide basic needs seminars. These are called Food for Thought. So these are 4-credit seminars that are focused on building life skills related to basic needs. This can look like anything from computer skills, emotional well-being, nutrition and food systems, and other topics listed here. We also offer a seminar called Personal Food Security and Wellness, and this allows students to learn about nutritional eating and cooking with a focus on food budgeting. These seminars are a really great opportunity for students to make friends and elevate their basic needs skills, all the while earning academic credit. And moving forward, talking about when to get connected with the Basic Needs Center, we encourage those who are experiencing basic needs insecurity themselves or know someone who is expressing concerns about basic needs issues to fill out the assistance form. Like I said, this is available to all students, including undocumented students. And after submitting this form, a student will be contacted by our care team to discover the ways in which our center can best support a student's condition. So we have some examples listed here that may be helpful in recognizing basic needs and security experienced by oneself or by one around you. And filling out the basic needs assistance form is an important step in ensuring that the Basic Needs Center is accessible and available to all those in need of assistance and guidance within our campus community. And again, that's including undocumented students within our communities. It's also essential to keep in mind that basic needs insecurities are not monolithic in any way. Challenges in meeting basic needs vary from person to person and therefore can look different from person to person. We also uplift that one's challenges with basic needs cannot always be explicitly or overtly recognized. And this is why active listening and intentional care for all members within our campus communities is vital for the well-being of all of us within this space. We also have a lovely clickable document called our resource cheat sheet that we will be able to share with you following this meeting. So you can access this document at tinyurl.com/BNC resource, or you can take a picture here. And this is just laying out everything that we talked about, and it also organizes it between a prevention and emergency resource. We also encourage you to get connected with us on social media or subscribe to our newsletter to receive Basic Needs Center updates. And lastly, just want to thank you so much for the time and space to learn about our center's values and services. Our inboxes are always open for questions, and so is our assistance forum to all students. This contact information is available on the resources cheat sheet shown previously, as well as on our website. And ultimately, we just want to uplift that our center is a collaborative and community-oriented space. So it simply wouldn't be possible without people like you who are passionate about uplifting basic needs on our campuses across California. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lauren. If y'all have any questions, please, include them in the chat. We have our team that's going to be taking into consideration all of your questions, and we'll be, folks will be able to have the opportunity to address them towards the end of this presentation. So now we'll go ahead and continue with our next presenter. We have Alejandro Delgadillo, who's actually the Associate Director for Educational Equity and Access at UC Merced.
Yes, good afternoon. Just want to point of clarification. Oh, you're going to advance the slides for me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. So yes, I am the Associate Director for Educational Equity and Access here at UC Merced, as I oversee a variety of different programs here. And the thing is that our programs are supporting first-generation low-income students here at the university. And approximately 74% of our students here at UC Merced are first-generation, 64% come from low-income families as well. So it's an extremely diverse campus. Next slide, please. So as you apply to the University of California, there are 9 campuses that you can apply to straight out of high school, or if you're transferring from a community college to any of the UC system. Keep in mind that 7 out of the 9 UC campuses rank in the top 47 universities in the world, and 8 rank in the top 100 universities. And UC Merced, which is the newest one, which opened in 2005, currently ranks in the top 100 universities in the United States. Next slide, please. So the UC commitment to supporting undocumented students has been going on for over 8 years. In supporting undocumented students, the University of California has invested over $13.5 million in supporting undocumented students at our 10 UC campuses, which includes UC San Francisco, which is the school is basically, it's a medical school, various master's and PhD programs there. And so we do have undocumented students who are attending medical school or pursuing PhDs at UC San Francisco as well, and receiving fellowships that help them pay for their tuition. And if they have work authorization or DACA, they have the opportunities to be research assistants or teaching assistants at those institutions across the UC system as well. We do provide a variety of undocumented allied trainings at our respective campuses and training our faculty and our staff and becoming more aware about the issues and concerns of undocumented students and how to become allies and be supportive of our undocumented communities on our respective campuses. The president of the University of California does have monthly sessions to find out from students who are undocumented across the 10 UC campuses their thoughts and concerns about the services and programs that we're currently offering, or how we also support undocumented students. For many folks may not know that the University of California filed suit against the Trump administration when the Trump administration tried to terminate DACA. So next slide, please. So the services available at our respective campus and here at UC Merced as well is we provide academic counseling. We provide legal support, and I'll talk more about the legal support and how it's open not only to undocumented students, but undocumented students and their immediate families can also use the services for free. So also students who are mixed status, meaning that students might be US citizens or permanent residents, but their immediate family may be undocumented, can also use the services as well. We do provide a variety of different trainings for our faculty, our staff, to become more aware of how the university itself or each campus can be supportive of undocumented students. Programs and organizations, including student organizations that we develop, as far as also internships and specifically for undocumented students. So for example, for the last 3 generations of undocumented students attending universities across the United States, many have now become the majority where they do not have work authorization or they don't have DACA, where the previous generations of students going to college had DACA and were able to find employment or opportunities for research or internships at their respective universities. But because so many of our students now are not able to work or have work authorization, each of our UC campuses have implemented internships and fellowships that help those students who do not have work authorization to get the paraprofessional experience and to additionally get additional financial aid. So many of us have created fellowships where students who apply for our internships at our respective campuses are able to receive additional financial aid as compensation for the experiences they're having and working on the campus in the forms of interns. We do work with our counseling and psychological services at our respective campuses. And in addition, our counseling and psychological staff also are involved in our undocumented ally training as they learn more and more about how to serve undocumented students and many of the issues that many of our undocumented students are struggling with. We also provide career and graduate school counseling. For example, we have here at UC Merced the Undocu Scholar Academy, which is a 7-week program we offered every semester. And students who go through the academy learn not only about how to write resumes, how to prepare for interviews, how to write cover letters, but also how to find graduate schools or professional schools like medical school or law school that they wish to apply, how to finance their graduate studies, whether they have DACA or not, how can they still go on to graduate school. But we also talk about career opportunities after graduation from universities. So for example, a student may not have DACA, but what are their career options? So we talk and instruct students about the importance of becoming independent contractors or creating their own company or business through becoming what's called an LLC and the process that entails. We also encourage students to, as we work very closely with Immigrants Rising, an organization based in the Bay Area that provides funding for young undocumented immigrants or scholars who wish to create their own businesses and apply for entrepreneurial funds. So we also provide emergency funds at all our campuses. And here at UC Merced, our emergency funds are allocated through our Office for Services for Undocumented Student. So a student goes online and say, I don't have enough funds for rent, and it's coming up pretty soon. So we are able to allocate and work with our financial aid to be sure that the student gets those funds. If a student does not have groceries, then we work with our basic needs and being able to provide gift cards for students so they can buy groceries or go to our food pantry once a week and pick up groceries and go online once a week to order their groceries and then pick up their groceries once a week. And we also work with the Merced County Food Bank in that our students are eligible to use that service as well through the County of Merced. So we provide a great deal of resources for our students, especially financially. In addition, students who do have DACA and are looking to reapply or renew their DACA and don't have the funds can also apply for emergency funds, and we also assist our students with that process. Or they're starting another application, like for example, the new one is advanced parole, as many students are looking to study abroad or having work-related experience that requires them to leave the United States, or because of humanitarian reasons. And so therefore we help them with that application fee. And again, our attorneys through the UC Immigrant Legal Services also helps them with the application process, as well as the DACA renewals as well, and any other related immigration concerns that students may have and need legal assistance. We do provide centers at our respective campuses. You may not hear within the UC system the term DREAMer, as we use undocumented or AB 540 resource centers. And the reason is because many students in the UC system prefer to recognize as undocumented, because the fact is that the term DREAMer is a DREAMer or acronym that was created by politicians in Washington, D.C., and is not always inclusive of the students' families or parents. And so therefore, our students identify within the UC system or prefer the identification or moniker of undocumented. So institutional grants and scholarships, each UC campus does provide additional financial aid and scholarships for undocumented students at the respective campuses. We at UC Merced work very closely with the Mexican consulate in providing the IME Becas, which is a program that's based by the Mexican government through the different consulates throughout the United States. And so we apply annually for that, as well as we match the funds that were allocated by the consulate and then provide scholarships to our students here at the university. So there's also, as I mentioned before, internships and fellowships so that our students can get the paraprofessional work experience that they're lacking. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, the UC Immigrant Legal Services, it's based at UC Davis School of Law, the Martin Luther King Jr. School of Law. However, each campus is assigned an attorney, whether they're physically on the campus or a lot of our students also work remotely with our attorneys and so forth on a variety of different immigration-related issues that they're dealing with. So it could be advanced parole, the initial DACA application, DACA renewals, or any form of immigration assistance. And the thing is also that remember that these services are not limited to just the student, but the student's immediate families, as well as our students who might be mixed status, can also use the services as well as their immediate family. Next slide. So it's important to understand what is AB 540. So in 2001, the state of California, and it was signed into law by then Governor Gray Davis. And so basically, if a student graduates from a California high school, attended that said California high school for 3 years and graduated, that they can go on to college in the state of California and be considered a California resident and therefore be eligible for in-state tuition instead of being considered a non-resident or a resident of another state and probably having to pay 3 times that amount. So it does provide for that. Eventually later, the California DREAM Act came about, and as long as students are AB 540 eligible, they can apply for financial aid in the state of California. And there's 2 different types, and I'll talk about that later. Also, AB 2000, which went into effect in 2014. So let's say, for example, my family is a migrant family, and I'm in the migrant ed program. But the thing is that I only spent 2 years at a California high school. Previously, I had lived in California and attended elementary, maybe even middle school. But for my first 2 years of high school, we moved to another state. Now my family's come back from my last 2 years of high school. I'm deficient to 3 years. I only have 2 years of California high school. But AB 2000 allows for students to now use the previous years that they attended in elementary and middle school, or any combination of, to make up for those missing 3 years and therefore qualify for AB 540 through this AB 2000 now. And then there's SB 68. So there are students who may not have attended a California high school or graduated from California high school, or maybe attended just 1 year a California high school, but therefore don't qualify for AB 540 under the initial proposal. And they don't satisfy it under AB 2000. But if I go to a California community college, if I get an associate's degree or I'm eligible to transfer to a Cal State or a UC campus, once I'm able to transfer, then I become AB 540 eligible. And again, students have to submit an what's called an AB 540 affidavit or tuition. It's basically a tuition granting form that you have to submit to the registrar of the respective university, whether it be a Cal State, whether it be a California Community College or a UC campus. Next slide, please. So if you're applying to the University of California, remember the application opens August 1st. And when you have to electronically submit it, now the dates have changed. It used to be from November 1st to November 30th. Now the University of California has expanded the day that you can submit your application electronically to now October 1st through November 30th. So technically you have 4 months to work on your UC application. There's an application fee, but if you qualify for the fee waiver, you can apply to 4 UCs for free. At the end of the application, you will be asked, do you want to be considered for a fee waiver? So you had previously in the application indicated your family income for this coming year and for the previous year. So that is calculated by the application, and then you are informed right then and there if you qualify for the fee waiver. So if you only apply to 3 schools and you get the fee waiver, then go ahead and add a 4th one because you get 4 for free. Any additional one after that is $70 per campus. But again, if you only are applying to 1 or 2 or 3, and you get the fee waiver, you should apply to 4. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, we have paused. Oh, here we go. Okay, so when you apply to the University of California, and this is how we identify undocumented students, is you will be asked for the country of citizenship. You should put no selection. Many students who are undocumented will put, I'm from El Salvador or Nicaragua or Taiwan. And so the thing is that then we identify you as an international student, and then the application shifts gear and the subsequent questions are different. So therefore, to avoid that, just put no selection. If you have DACA or you have some form of social security number, then you write your social security number in here. If you don't have a social security number, but you have an ITIN number, you can use the ITIN. But if you neither have an ITIN number or a social security number, but you put no selection, then you can move on without having to put a social security number or an ITIN number, as long as you put no selection as the country of citizenship. Next slide. After accepting your application, you need to submit what's called a statement of intent to register, meaning I've been offered admission to UC Berkeley. So I submit my SIR, means you accept your admission to UC Berkeley. That's what the SIR is. Often there's a fee that goes along with it, but if you qualify for the fee waiver, you can have it waived. If, for example, you cannot pay the $250 fee that goes with your statement of intent to register, you can contact the campus that you are accepting your admission to, and they will waive it for you. Okay. So again, this is a means of the statement of legal residency is a means of determining that you are indeed a resident of the state of California. So that's for tuition purposes, so that we charge you as an in-state tuition, as an in-state student and not an out-of-state student. Next slide. So the California non-residential tuition exemption request. So this is what are often commonly known as the AB 540 form. This is a form you will fill out, and I'll show you an example in the next slide. But the form is basically sent to the office of the registrar of the university that you are going to be attending. So whether it be a CSU or a UC campus or even a California community college, because each system has its own form. So you submit the form to the registrar's office of the school that you will be attending. The registrar's office then will see if you indeed satisfy the requirements, either AB 540 or AB 2000 or even SB 68. If you qualify under any of those three, then you will be granted AB 540 status. But if you don't turn this form in, then you will be charged as an out-of-state student. So at the University of California, or at least UC Merced, the tuition for the year is $13,538. Okay. Well, if you don't turn in this form, then we're charging you $49,000. So it's important for you to be sure that you're submitting this form in a timely manner. You don't have to wait until you find out if you're accepted. You can submit the form at any time and to be able to be considered and reviewed by the registrar. And then the registrar will notify you that you indeed qualify for AB 540, and you will be charged as an in-state student and also eligible for financial aid. Next slide, please. So this is the form. So there are two columns. So there's column A and there's column B. You must check the boxes that apply to you. So often students are confused by the question here, question number 1, check one box that apply. Well, if you had a visa when you came to the United States and it has since expired, then you are no longer eligible to be considered as a visa holder. So you would say, I do not have a current non-immigrant visa as defined by federal law. So you would check that box. If you have a visa, then you are not undocumented. So be sure that you understand the questions and read them thoroughly. The two columns, this is what will be determining if you're an AB 540 student. The other box on the right-hand side is you will list the schools that you attended in California. So if you are coming straight from high school, you will list your high school, or if you attended multiple high schools, you will list your high schools, but indicate from when to when did you attend. Also, if you are transferring from a community college, then you can put in there the name of your community college, and then sign and submit the form to the office of the registrar so that you can be considered for in-state tuition and for financial aid. Next slide, please. So remember, there are different forms of financial aid that a university or the University of California can provide for you. So there are Cal grants. So there are two forms of financial aid that undocumented students are eligible for in the state of California. And it makes up the California DREAM Act. Now, students get confused with the Federal DREAM Act and the California DREAM Act. They are separate. The California DREAM Act is solely about financial aid. The Federal DREAM Act is still not passed in Washington, D.C. It's much more about determining lawful presence in the United States for undocumented immigrants and so forth, and the benefits and the process they have to go through. So AB 130 is basically the law that says that you are eligible for financial aid through the institution. AB 131 is that you are eligible for financial aid through the state of California, often in the form of Cal grants. Institutional grants are grants that the university or college that you're attending can offer you. Regent scholars in the University of California, if you are in the top 7% of students admitted to the University of California, doesn't matter what campus you're going to, we cover your tuition for 4 years. Scholarships that you can find as private scholarships, and there's a variety of different scholarships out there. You just got to find them. I hear from students too many times, well, I went to my counselor and they only gave me 2 scholarships I could apply for. There are hundreds of scholarships out there for undocumented students, and undocumented students are either eligible for, or the scholarships specifically are for undocumented students. A good resource is Immigrants Rising, as they have not only a listing of scholarships for undergraduate undocumented students, but also for students who want to go on to graduate school or professional school like law school, medical school, or pursuing a master's or PhD. In the state of California, we also offer the Dream Loans. Now, many students, and me being Latino, we don't want to owe people money. I get that. But more and more, for a lot of students across the United States, loans are probably a necessity. So usually we cap it out no more than, here at UC Merced anyway, no more than $3,000 a year that we will allocate in Dream Loans. So a student does not have to accept the whole $3,000. They can say, you know what, I don't need all $3,000. I only need like $1,500. So maybe I get $750 fall semester, $750 spring semester. You don't always have to accept the amount that's being offered to you. You always can negotiate with financial aid. But we also see some students coming up with grants and scholarships and so forth, and still in some cases might still be $2,000 short. So sometimes maybe accepting the loan. Now the thing about the Dream Loans, they work like what's called subsidized loans. Subsidized loans is basically this. You do not have to, the loans is you don't pay them while you're going to school. You pay them you start paying them back 6 months after you graduate or leave the university, and you have 10 years to pay it off at a very small percentage. So often, don't be frightened of Dream Loans. Have a conversation with your family before you accept them though, and be sure that you and your family understand how the Dream Loans work. Next slide. So the Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan. This is not a scholarship. Let me clarify this. This is not a scholarship. This is basically how the University of California packages a student's financial aid. And this is open to undocumented students. So if your family makes less than $80,000, now please hear this. If your family makes less than $80,000 per year, you qualify for the Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan. And so what the plan is how we package your financial aid. So we take your Cal grant, we take your institutional grant, any other scholarships that you have, and put it all together. And first and foremost, we use those funds to pay your tuition. So your tuition's covered. Whatever funds you still have left over in the form of additional financial aid will go to your other expenses. So if you're living in the residence halls, if you need books, things like that, then that funds will be returned to you or in the form of a reimbursement check, and you can use those funds for your educational purposes and so forth. So this is not a scholarship. It is how we package your financial aid to cover your tuition first and foremost. So next slide. So here's an example of estimated expenses for this year at UC Merced. So the yellow highlighted areas is what the actual cost is. So if you're looking at $38,000 and you're going, híjole, I can't afford that. That's not what you have to pay. It's the yellow highlighted areas that you are responsible for, and which is called the cost of attendance, COA. So what we estimate, the rest of it is estimated expenses. So if you have books, we say maybe $1,000 you spend on books. However, the average student spends about more like $400. And if you know other students and buy books from other students or online, that cost could go even down further. Transportation just depends how often you go home, especially if you're living far away from home and going to college. Personal expenses, health insurance, and the University of California requires you to have health insurance. But if you have Medi-Cal, just transfer your Medi-Cal from your home county to the county of the school that you will be attending. And then you can waive that health insurance. If not, then the university will charge you for that. So there are ways to save you money, even the room and board. If you live in a standard 2-person room, okay, that's how much it's going to cost, $18,887. And that includes your meals. But if you live in a room with 3 people or 4 people, then that cost goes down. The tuition stays the same, but remember, we're always going to cover the tuition as long as you qualify for the Blue and Gold. Next slide, please. So here's a sample of an award letter for financial aid to an undocumented student. So as you can see, the student is being charged $67,420. And the reason is because they haven't submitted the AB 540 form. So that's $29,754 that will go away once they submit their AB 540 form. $2,400 will go away once the student submits the health insurance waiver. I already have Medi-Cal, so I can show proof that I have it. So therefore, you don't have to charge me for that. And so therefore, this is how you reduce the cost of attending the university. Okay. In this case, the student is receiving almost $29,000 in financial aid. So it comes out that the student's expense is more closer to $30,000 or $31,000 if you include room and board and tuition. So therefore, the student may at the most have to pay $1,500 or $2,000 out of pocket and so forth. So again, this is how financial aid works. So be sure that you and your family understand how the financial aid award is going to work. Next slide. I'm almost done, I think. Okay, so, oh my gosh, I'm way over. So here's a source of scholarships for students that we strongly recommend. Actually, on our undocu.ucmerced.edu website, you can find these scholarships and so forth to support undocumented students. So at that, I'm going to end the presentation because I've gone over and I apologize for that.
Thank you so much, Alejandra, and we'll share, we'll share these slides with folks so they'll have access to some of the remaining slides, but thank you so much. Next up, we have Liliana Iglesias, who is the Dream Resource Center Program Director at UC Berkeley.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Alejandro, for sharing that information. I would say a lot of what Alejandro covered, it's gonna mirror some of the services that I'll give as an example at UC Berkeley. So we can go to the next slide. And I'll be talking more about mental health support and our Transcending Beyond Berkeley Fellowship, but I wanted to start off with a slide that breaks down what our services look like, which again mirrors a lot of what Alejandro covered. So we provide academic counseling, mental health support, which I'll go into deeper in a little bit, immigration legal support, financial support and emergency grants. We also have community events and workshops. And we also have our Transcending Beyond Berkeley Fellowship. And again, I'll go deeper into what mental health support and our fellowship looks like, particularly at UC Berkeley. And other schools, other UCs have similar programs like, fellowships like this. But again, I'll go a little bit deeper into what it looks like at Berkeley. So first, with mental health support, we do have 2 dedicated psychologists that meet with our undocumented students at Berkeley. So they are part of counseling and psychological services at the university, but they are tasked with working specifically with our students. And what their services look like include groups. So there is a group that meets continuously. They're pre-screened with students, and so it helps to help connect students, talk about certain issues that might coincide with each other. We also have workshops such as anxiety and mood management, drop-in workshops where students can drop in whenever they would like, learn some techniques that they can apply anywhere. And also, again, get to learn from each other in that way. Graduate students. So we are seeing more and more of our undocumented undergrads graduate and pursue graduate school or take a few years off and then go to grad school. So that's really exciting. We do also offer UndocuGrad Wellness Circle. So again, a mental health support circle specifically for students at the graduate level. Also, there's Let's Talk. So I know Alejandro mentioned Let's Talk, which is kind of like a drop-in schedule meetings, more informal, also scheduled appointments, and students can meet with our psychologists as frequently. There's no limit as to how many appointments they can have. So usually depending on the student situation, they can continue meeting with our psychologist, or our psychologist will refer them out if, depending on the case, where they might be served better. We also have mental health reimbursement. So a lot of times for those students that do have to go on campus, we do provide an award for them, so that that out-of-pocket expense is not something that keeps them from attaining mental health support. And TAO, online stress and anxiety and depression resources, those are available to anyone. And our psychologists also like to highlight and equip our students with resources that exist that could be helpful and empowering for students also to continue utilizing. So that is our mental health support. And now I'm shifting gears. So fellowship, career readiness, which we know is very important. What we learn in the classroom is important, and also what we learn outside the classroom and the experience that we get is as important, if not a little bit more, and helps with the types of employment or career opportunity, etc., or self-contracting services that a student or alum will provide once they leave the university. So the Transcending Beyond Berkeley Fellowship, this is our second year with it. We recruit different campus partners to host students who are undocumented to complete a project under their scope. And that is tied to a stipend of $4,000 per academic year. We are on the semester system, so 2,000 for the fall and 2,000 for the spring. At the end of the academic year, the students showcase what they learned, and throughout they're attending workshops with each other to also build community. So even though they're placed throughout campus at different placements, they also meet each other, build community, learn what each other is doing at their respective placements. And I listed some examples of the departments that have participated or are participating with us. Those include the Career Center, Path to Care, the Department of Art Practice, the Multicultural Community Center, the Center for Undergraduate Discovery. So this shows how immersed into the campus students can get to also receive this experience and also feel more supported throughout campus. And that is all that I have for you all. Thank you. Feel free to learn more. This is our website, and I believe my contact information will be shared later too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Liliana. And, folks, if you don't attend UC Berkeley, this is something that you could look into your respective university or the university that you plan to attend. I know UC Davis has a similar fellowship, a mentorship and professional development fellowship, I believe, and it's paid and it's open to undocumented students. So, look into that, if a university, a UC that you attend that you're interested in has, something similar to offer. So now we'll continue with Ariel Bailey, who's a legal fellow with the UC Davis Immigrant Legal Service Center.
Hi, thank you, Ava. I am, as she said, Ariel Bailey. I am a legal fellow at the UC Immigrant Legal Services Center. I serve UC Davis. But I'm going to talk about those free immigration legal services that Alejandro referred to earlier, and just provide a little bit more detail on the kinds of services that are available to enrolled UC students as well as family members. Oh, I forgot, I'm not running the slides. Thank you. Yeah, so we are a center, a UC-wide center that serves the immigration-related legal needs of undocumented and immigrant students, as well as immediate family members, as well as students from mixed status families. So whether you are a student who is undocumented or a non-citizen otherwise, or whether you just have family members who are non-citizens, we can provide services. Our services are completely free always, and we serve 9 out of the 10 UC campuses. We're headquartered here at UC Davis School of Law, but we have staff sort of all throughout California, and folks who provide services remotely or on a hybrid model at the campuses. So we serve every UC campus apart from Berkeley, and that includes UCSF, the graduate medical school. Berkeley has its own program through EBCLC, which is the East Bay Community Law Center, which is located in Berkeley, close to the school. Next slide, please. So just so you could kind of see the faces of the folks who would be assisting you, these are our 9 attorneys. Amber is our newest one, which is why she doesn't have a picture, unfortunately, but this is all of our contact information. So as you can see, each UC campus that we serve has a dedicated attorney, either a staff attorney or a legal fellow, who is someone who is a recent graduate of law school, who works at our center for either 1 or 2 years. Again, you can find your campus and reach out directly to your attorney, but I'll also provide some more contact information at the end. Next slide, please. Oh yes, and we have an amazing support staff. So if you're not talking directly to an attorney, you might be talking to one of our paralegals or our administrative staff, who are also wonderful resources. Yeah, and you can just click through all these. Yeah, so what services do we offer? First and most importantly, we offer screenings and consultations to assess your legal case and whether you have any options for pursuing immigration relief. That would be a meeting, sometimes over Zoom or phone or in person, with an attorney, where you would talk about your immigration history and your life in the United States, so that we could make an assessment on what sorts of pathways are available to you. We also provide referrals to other legal services for things that are outside of the scope of the work that we do. For example, employment-based immigration, or sometimes asylum or issues with international student visas. We would refer to other immigration attorneys. We would also do that for folks who don't qualify for our services. So maybe you previously attended, maybe you're an alum of a UC student, but you don't currently qualify. We can still help you by connecting you to other immigration legal services. And then of course, with other non-immigration related issues, such as criminal legal issues, family law, things like that. So that's a big resource that we provide as well. Another thing is immigration background checks. And this is not something that every immigration legal organization does, but we do this for most of our clients who are going to be applying for some kind of immigration status for the first time. Before we do that, we request records from all the different immigration agencies and the FBI to get a complete picture of someone's immigration and criminal history before we submit new information to the government. So this helps us safeguard our clients by ensuring that we're not going to put anyone in danger by submitting applications, and just making sure we have all the information. So that's a very common service we provide for folks. And then we also have affirmative immigration applications. These are the big cases that probably is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of immigration legal services. These are applications for DACA or DACA renewals, applications for advanced parole, which is permission for documented folks and some other folks to travel outside the country and return safely. Temporary protected status applications and renewals, family-based petitions for folks who have an immediate relative or another relative who is a US citizen or lawful permanent resident and want to get their green card through that person. Green card applications for folks who qualify, special immigrant juvenile status, which is a type of pathway to a green card that's available to individuals who are under 21 years old and don't have a strong relationship with one or both of their biological parents. We do a lot of U visas, which are for individuals who have survived serious crimes in the United States. And if you could click a couple more times. We have some more, there they are. We do T visas occasionally, which are for people who have survived trafficking situations, VAWA, which is Violence Against Women Act applications for survivors of domestic violence, naturalization, which is applications for citizenship for folks who have been permanent residents for a certain period of time, military parole in place, which is a form of relief available to immediate family members of folks who are in the US military, work permit renewals for people who already have their work permits that are expiring, green card renewals similarly. And the last one that I don't think you can quite see is consular processing for individuals who are outside the United States and applying for a visa to come to move to the US. And it varies by campus, but most campuses have some kind of grant or financial support available to cover the filing fees for these applications. Because unfortunately, immigration applications can be really expensive to submit because the government charges fees. So the UCs have set up various funds to help support students in paying those fees. And if for whatever reason you don't qualify for the fees or there aren't funds available, we can also provide other resources to help you, such as 0% interest loans through an organization called Mission Asset Fund to help meet that financial need. Next slide, please. So who qualifies? All enrolled UC students qualify, as well as their immediate family members, which includes siblings, parents, spouses, and children of UC students. And if you could click once more, thank you. So it's important to note that the UC student must be currently enrolled to qualify. So if you're nearing graduation or your UC student relative is nearing graduation, it's important to meet with us before that graduation date so that we can still serve you while they're a student and, if necessary, start a case before they graduate so we can continue working with you. Next slide, please. So some important times when you should consider making an appointment. Of course, if you haven't met with us before, go ahead and make an appointment as soon as you can, but especially if anything on this list applies to you. So if you have never met with an immigration attorney before, or you're not sure of your immigration status, sometimes maybe your parents met with an immigration attorney, or maybe you did when you were really young. But if you're just not really sure what your status is, you can meet with us, have a consultation, and we'll clarify all of that for you. If you're under 21 years old, and especially if you're getting close to turning 21, very important birthday for immigration purposes. So we like to meet with you before that if possible. If you don't have a close relationship with both parents, I mentioned special immigrant juvenile status a few slides ago. It might be worth assessing whether you qualify for that form of relief if you don't have a close relationship with both parents. If you survive a serious crime in the United States, of course, we hope this doesn't happen to you, but if it does, whether or not you've chosen to report the crime to the police, you can meet with an immigration attorney to talk about how it might affect the options that you have. If you're charged with or convicted of a crime, chances are you'll probably be working with a public defender or a criminal defense attorney, but you'll also want to meet with an immigration attorney such as us to help assess whether there will be any impact to your immigration status. If you plan to travel outside the United States anytime soon, and you're not a citizen of the United States, it'll be very important to meet with an immigration attorney before you leave to make sure you have lined up all the appropriate permissions and to assess whether you'll have any kind of trouble coming back into the United States. And if you're married or engaged to a US citizen or green card holder, that's a great time to see if you might be eligible for a pathway to a green card through your partner. And then also, if you already have your green card and you've had it for many years, over 5 years, then you could be eligible for US citizenship. And then, of course, if you have a work permit already that's expiring soon, please reach out to us. We recommend at least 6 months in advance. For DACA, more like 5 months, but still well in advance. And we can help you renew those things. So next slide, please. Oh, yes. And we highly just want to recommend taking advantage of this resource because our services are completely free. And in the real world, after you graduate, you might have to pay a private immigration attorney to do these same things for you. And that can cost thousands of dollars. So take advantage of the resource. We are a student service. You pay tuition here. So, take advantage of it while you can. Next slide. Thank you. So there are some other resources if you don't think you have a specific need to meet with an attorney, but you want something to reference. We have a lot of FAQs and resources listed on our website. These are linked, so you'll be able to click on them when you get the PowerPoint slides later on, including an FAQ about advanced parole for DACA recipients and an FAQ about U visas, which are for survivors of serious crimes. So you'll be able to review those. I've also linked to our social media here, which I highly recommend you follow if you want to stay up to date on immigration policy changes, especially those that are likely to impact our clients. So people who are students or family members of students in the UC system. And then finally, I've posted 3 different, just very reputable, you've heard a couple of these names before in this presentation, the ILRC, which is great for sort of detailed, deep dive information about various forms of immigration relief. Immigrants Rising, which is a fantastic resource for figuring out how to make money as an undocumented person with or without a work authorization card. And then the National Immigration Law Center, which is another really great place for policy updates related to immigration and other resources. Next slide, please. So this is, I've just posted again while I sort of finish up chatting for a second so that you can get a chance to write down your attorney's name and email address. But I wanted to flag that obviously UC Berkeley is not on this list. So if you are a student at UC Berkeley, you can go to ebclc.org to make an appointment for your immigration consultation. And then if you have just a general question, you can reach out to our general inbox, which is ucimm@law.ucdavis.edu. And that's where to go if you're not sure which campus you should reach out to, or you're not sure if you qualify, you can email our general inbox. And that is it from me. So, oh yes, there are the links there. So you'll be able to look at those on the slides. That's it from me. I will stick around if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But I will pass it back to Ava.
Thank you so much, Ariel. We'll continue. Thank you, folks. Again, feel free to use the chat if you have any questions, but we'll continue with the last 2 items for this agenda, which include the Dream Service Incentive Grant and Dream Loans. So if those are of interest for you, please stick around, but I'll pass it over to Gloria.
Thank you, Eva. Hello, everyone. It's me again, Gloria. Right, I'm the Central Valley organizer for CHIRLA. Today, we'll be talking about the Dream Service Incentive Grant, also known as DSIG. So you might be hearing that acronym a lot, right? And so I just want to clarify that DSIG is a new program, right? And there's some also policy changes that tend to expand more access for students. At this point in time, our advocates such as us, the community, right, and you, along with the California Student Aid Commission, CSAC, as they're known, we're still understanding the opportunities and challenges that come with these programs. So a couple of them is, 1, really getting the word out with these type of programs, right? Making sure that students know that these are available for them. 2, how to make the programs actually work for full-time students, part-time students, students that are parents, students that are caretakers, so forth, right? And then how do we make these programs doable and really not overwhelming for you, right? Next slide, please. And so with the Dream Service Incentive Grants, the program was really created out of the need to increase resources for undocumented students. But also, the second thing was, what is a creative way to provide a learning space for students here? And essentially, you're getting financial aid for your academic journey, but also getting hands-on experience. So here, right, it says the DSEG allows California Dream Act application students with an active Cal Grant B. So in order to really participate and take full advantage of this opportunity, you would have to have an active Cal B award to you at that time as well. And so essentially, CSAC can actually award up to $3,000 depending on your schedule. And this could be by semester or quarterly, as you see here, and 2,500, right, 2,500 eligible students that can take advantage from here. The terms of how many times you would be eligible for the program, it could be anywhere from 8 semesters or up to 12 quarters as well from here. Next slide. So this brochure was actually taken out of the CSAC website, which we'll drop the link in a second. And so essentially this brochure really covers, am I eligible, right? So if you're thinking, I don't know, am I? So this is a perfect simple checklist for you to go through. If you check off and say, okay, I'm available, I am eligible, right in the middle is what do I do next, right? And so the steps are how to apply, performing the hours, requesting, right, stuff. And then here on the third slide right here is where can I perform community or volunteer services? So they really give a beautiful list of organizations that you can volunteer your time or community service, right, at the same time for your provided area. Next slide. Now let's talk about organizations that can possibly be a home for students, right, for the DSEC program. So first, the nonprofit needs to be a 501c3. So basically, that's for tax purposes. Unfortunately, it cannot be an org that you or your friends created like a year ago, due to the fact that it needs to be established for at least 2 years, right, as well. And so essentially, the parameters here is that it can't be partisan, meaning it can't pick a side. It has to be nonpartisan, so very neutral ground. And one of the examples is animal shelters, right? Now, one way you can really think about this is take UC Davis, for example, right? If you're a student studying animal science, you can volunteer or do community service at an animal shelter, right? Or equivalent to your major. Again, DSEG was created to having a hands-on experience and really having that connection to your major. So that way you have that experience to continue your education or career path, right? Once you graduate from there. Next slide. So essentially, this is a screenshot of the website from CSAC's website that you can see here. And basically, it has a beautiful outline, right? If you can see a list of service organizations. Once you click on it, you can see all the available organizations that you can do community service, community hours, along with all the qualifying universities, colleges at different levels that are participating. And the last time I looked, the whole state of California seems to be participating. So that's great news, right, for our folks here as well. Again, we have more information on how an organization can really be a part of the DSEC program, really to continue offering that. And so there's different ways. And along with this website, there's podcasts and videos that really detail DSEC program even more for you on the site as well. Next slide. So there has been some upcoming changes. DSEC program was really meant to support in the financial assistance for students. However, we know it may not cover everything, right? There might be not enough for books or whatever it may be. And so one of the things that came out as a proposed item in the governor's budget this year, it was actually looking to increase the stipend amount per hour that the students will receive. So currently with this program, students are receiving $10 an hour, right, for the hourly wage. Now, the proposed was to increase the $10 an hour to $15 an hour, right? Which is great news, right? The more funding that we get for all your hard work. And so essentially what this has to happen, it has to go through a legislative process, the budgeting process, but At the end, if it does succeed and pass, the program will then shift at this point in time, and students will be increased to $15 an hour moving forward, right? And so this is something that we would love to continue expanding for folks there. Next slide, please. So again, if you have any more information on DSIG, including if you're eligible as a student or organization, or any technical questions, you can directly contact CSIG. So I will drop the link down. And with that being said, I'll actually pass it to Janet to talk about the Dream Loan Program.
Hi, folks. So you heard a little bit from our previous speakers touch on the California Dream Loan. This has been something that the California Dream Network has pushed for since 2011, 2012. I remember it was an idea, and then slowly we started mobilizing different students across California to go and testify in Sacramento, and we finally have this resource. So the California Dream Loan, like was mentioned before, is what is in the name. It's a dream loan. It's a loan that is low percentage, and like mentioned, it's not super high in terms of borrowing, because a lot of the folks that are coming in as undocumented, first generation, low income families, they're trying to not only pay for their education, but also understand the financial aspects of what it means to pay for your higher education. And sometimes there's a lot of folks, especially those who are undocumented, that you need a co-signer in order to get a loan. So we understood this problem, and that's where the Dream Loan Program came in. So let's go a little bit more in detail of what that is. So the Dream Loan Program is funded by the state. So UC, Cal State systems, they're the ones that are the campuses are gonna provide the loan for eligible students who want to borrow from the state in order to help pay their education. Who's eligible? So anybody who applies for the California Dream Act, who graduated from a California high school with either a diploma or their GED, are eligible to apply for this state loan. How to access it. It's a little bit different for each school, but the campus itself will determine based on funds that are available. So like my compañeras mentioned in the beginning, the whole point of the California Dream campaign, that Dream Act campaign that we're doing, which this workshop is based for, is to let y'all know all these funds and that these campuses have, these state funds that not a lot of students tapped into because either they didn't have the resources or no one told them about this. So go to your campus, determine how much you can borrow, and you can, and like it was mentioned before, you can talk to this campus and let them know like, hey, I need this amount of money to pay for my education, but I don't think I can pay this much after graduating. So you can actually have a conversation with your campus, with a counselor, and understand how much money and the rate of paying it back would take for you or your family to pay your loan. Of course, like this is something that you can tap into for emergencies. It doesn't have to be something that you need to do, but it's an amazing opportunity for students if you want to pay for your education. Next slide. In order to find the Dream Loan, there's different ways, like I mentioned before, but if, let's say, for example, you go to a Cal State, this is actually the website that you can go to in order to apply. But I do want to let y'all know that because of the mobilization and participation of students like you, we were able to expand the Dream Loan to not only help students that are trying to obtain their undergraduate, but now they can tap into it if they're thinking of wanting to get their graduate studies right after. So this opportunity is not only limited to just one part of your academic journey, you can go with it after your undergrad. And of course, like, you can let us know if you have any questions. Lupita, Gloria, Eva, and I are available for you. But I think that's it, unless folks have any questions.
Thank you so much, Gloria and Janet. And just to add on, I was able to benefit from the Dream Loan. So, it's definitely a resource that's available for undocumented students. Many of us, we can't apply for federal loans. So this Dream Loan is intended, for students and undocumented students who maybe need some extra financial help. So please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us if you have any questions. My colleagues were able to track some of the questions in the chat. Do we have any questions from folks? Any questions?
Let's go ahead and turn off the recording.